So the first initiation to Ashtanga Yoga essentially comes through practicing the postures. It's the most physical, gross thing. You can take your body, you can feel yourself there, you can know that you're on the mat, you can notice whether sensations are coming and going. So it's the first tangible experience to work with. Within this quieting process and the observing process within the yoga practice, the observing the breath, the mind starts to quiet because you're staying with presence. If you're paying attention to your breath only happens now. It's not something that can happen in the past or in the future. You can't breathe in the past or future breathe. So the awareness of your breath essentially causes you to be present. And as you rest into that presence further, the mind subsides and things become more obvious. So even the natures of kindness or even just social order become obvious. Love becomes obvious. It's not like necessarily something that needs to be on a rule or even a list of commandments or precepts, so to speak. It's going to be an internal arising that it just feels more natural and more ease supporting to stay in that loving space, and that space of awareness and self-reflection. The fundamentals that are learned right from the beginning are that breath is the most important factor. The breath is the king. Breath is to be compromised by no other factor and no other principle, no other instruction, and no other concept that you can create in your head. So essentially, nothing compromises the breath. Now this is huge. When people really understand this, it's been my experience in my own practice, but it's been my experience in witnessing others that when they really can stay with that concept of being aware of the breath, these are the people that I know that seem to continue to practice year after year. Because that is the safety guide. You're not going to be able to enter into territory that's unwelcomed and some space that you shouldn't be in when you're stretching into a posture, or say you're moving into a posture in an area that you shouldn't be. If you're not supposed to be there, your breath is going to be the first indication that it's going to contract or cause you to not have that open, expansive, free sort of breath happening. So this is the first point for the new student of Ashtanga Yoga to really understand that it's all breath. Now, there's no expectation in how far we stretch or how far we can fold or how far we can make something happen physically. It really is just a willingness to move until the breath is complete. There's a term in this practice known as Vinyasa. It's a Sanskrit term from the ancient language of India, Sanskrit. And Vinyasa means breath and movement synchronization. So as we're moving, by the time my hands come together, that would be the completion of my inhalation. And as I'm exhaling, same as my hands come to my side, that's the end of my exhalation. This is Vinyasa. So there's always modifications. There's always adjustments and modifications to allow you to have an experience where you can watch the breath. So that is the most important. Then whether you're having your hands straight or hands overhead or hands in some particular position or legs in half lotus bound, this is coming as a secondary factor and a secondary importance. The muscle tissue responds in the same way that a brand new sponge responds to the breath. The tissue or the sponge to water, if you take a brand new sponge and bend it, it may crack or tear or rip. Now, however, if you submerge it in water, you'll then have the freedom to bend it in each way. So muscles, hips, tissue, joints, and ligaments all seem to work in that very same principle of the sponge, except they are getting wet or softened or pliable through the intake of oxygen. So when we take those big inhalations, what we're doing is allowing cells to float, space to be allowed, and then re-supporting with the internal lifting of Mula Bandha, Uddiyana Bandha, the body will start to fall at ease.